For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. Before the Dark Tower, before the Empire.
If you remain the power of the dark side,
you may fire when ready.
I'll show you the dark side. We would be honored if you would join us.
Don't worry, R2. We're going.
Back it up, Buzzsaw. But how dare what you have there?
I am a Jedi, like my father.
Force will be with you always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Blah Wars. It's 2018. Happy new fucking year to you. How you doing, Jude?
Happy New Year to you, mate. Glad it's 2018, to be honest, mate. Glad it's
2017 has been a dark year, but not in terms of cinema. I mean, how do you now feel? Because you've been and seen The Last Jedi again, finally.
Yeah. Finally, yeah. I held out. I stewed a little bit in what can only be described as self-pity and obnoxiousness. But I went on the 27th, a couple of days after Christmas, with my dad to see it again. And this time I was sitting there listening, just trying to listen to the stories and just listening to what all the characters were trying to say. So everything from Yoda to Snoke to all of those guys. And actually came away feeling a little bit more satisfied. I think the things that annoyed me, there were a couple of things that annoyed me. And I didn't go in there with any theories or anything, but what I expected was just explanations, because JJ left us with a load of sort of mystery boxes, right? And they were just sort of cut and cast out the window, which is fine now. But it was the whole why is Rey so powerful when she's just literally a nobody with no training? Yeah. And I think actually for the second time of watching the film, that was answered pretty well. It was answered in a way that I wasn't expecting to understand second time around, which was, and I think Snoke says it, where Kylo Ren is literally causing the Force to be so out of balance because Luke Skywalker shut himself off from the Force.
Yes.
And she, on meeting him or touching the lightsaber, the Force awakens inside her.
Yeah.
And she is just quickly elevated to having that much power.
Yes.
With no training.
I think so. It does almost happen at that point in the film. You can sort of track it back to that moment. Yeah. Before then, she doesn't really have any idea what's going on. Snoke does say to Kylo Ren that I warned him that, he says to Rey, I warned my apprentice that someone would rise to be his opposite and whatever. And the film is really all about balance. I mean, I saw it about 5 days after we saw it. Yeah. So I went back to see it again. And then I went to see it again the other day. And I do also have a really shitty bootleg version that I've downloaded. But
you've seen that 500 times.
I've watched that once, but I mean, I've like had it on in the background. I listened to it rather than watched it because the picture quality is pretty shit, and the sound is pretty shit too. But I have had that on. That's good for going back over scenes and listening to dialogue. Yeah. Anyway, particularly. And, even the third showing, I still enjoyed the film, although the third showing I was particularly tired, so I was quite sleepy in the third showing I went to see. But I was glad that you came out feeling very different about the movie on the second viewing.
I was furious the first time I saw it. Furious. But,
you weren't furious because you came out really happy. It was a day after. I think you literally read all this negative stuff and then you went, whoa.
I didn't read anything. What happened was I texted a mate that had seen it and said, hey, what do you think? And I got no response.
Yeah.
And I thought that was weird because he was buzzing before he went in.
Yeah.
And at the time I was like, this is great. And then on the train into work the next day, he was texting me saying, I don't know, man, it's a beautiful mess. It's like made me rethink everything. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Because I just loved it. And he said, have you actually sat to think about the implications of this? And I was like, okay. And then he just sort of to kind of explain from his perspective. And as he was texting, I was going, bugger, this guy's got a good point. And then I just sort of started to think about it myself. And I think this is what happened to a lot of people. There's two sets of fans now. By the way, everyone listening to this, I'm suffering from the worst cold. So I'm losing my voice. I've got sniffly lows. I just want to apologise now before we carry on any further. But
also, this show contains spoilers.
yeah. If you haven't seen The Last Jedi now, you really are
fucking are a terrible Star Wars fan if you've not seen The Last Jedi yet. Get down there.
Yeah,
there's Iris on Twitter, on Instagram. Sorry, Iris.
We
love
my
you.
mate Iris.
Thank you very much for for supporting us and everything. But get down there and see Star Wars now.
Iris, I know. We know where you live, man.
Don't know anybody called Iris.
We know. Just get down your local Madrid cinema and start watching The Last Jedi, for goodness sake. But so I think this is what happened. So we got two sets of fans now. We got prequel fans that are kind of grew up in all of this sort of lore and midichlorians and rules and dogma of the Jedi and the Sith and rule of two
hubris.
and all of that.
The word hubris is like used 4 or 5 times. Quite an obscure word.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a great word, and it's in Star Wars now. Yeah.
And then you've got the original fans that they just hate everything that isn't from the 70s and 80s.
Me?
You. But it seems to me that there's a few, like the memes that are going out on Facebook and on Instagram, it's almost like these two guys have got together and they're like fighting this new wave, this new generation of Last Jedi lovers. But I think what I've started to see is this trend of people going to see it for a second or third time and actually listening to the dialogue, listening to the structure of the film, watching the structure of the film, and then it painting a new perspective. Because the Force is the Force, it's not changed. I think a lot of those questions around who's Snoke and why is Rey so powerful, has been answered. I'm happy with that. I'm pretty chuffed with that. The who's Snoke thing, I think Snoke serves a purpose in the film by explaining the whole light dark thing. Yeah,
I mean, if he had said to Rey in that scene when they're confronting each other, I'm actually called Darth Plagueis or whatever, it would not make any fucking difference to her. She'd never have heard of the guy. It's irrelevant. And although the fanboys wanted that, they didn't get that. The prequel boys or whatever, or girls, I just don't think it's necessary. Well, the fact is, Snoke serves a purpose of being this emperor-like figure.
Yeah,
and he is disposed
of. We knew he wasn't Plagueis a couple of years ago because the guy who owns Canon, can't remember his name, came out and just said it. So we knew
fine.
That. I think the thing that people get narked about is that Snoke is so old. He's so old. So where the hell was he during the Empire?
Yeah.
It's all of that.
We
know
will
what's going to happen.
Find this out in a book sometime.
But you know why? Because Disney wanted to
years.
spend more bloody money, mate. That's why. And I think that...
What, on merchandising?
Yeah, on books and comics and stuff like that.
The thing is, right, the expanded universe has been wiped clean. There's none of that now. I mean, it's still there. Anyone can pick it up and read it. That's cool. You can read about Luke Skywalker's... Leia and Han's children. And you can read about Mara Jade and all that kind of stuff. And, I still do read those things, and I think they're great still. And some things in that expanded universe I didn't like, but what Disney did is they wiped it all clean, and they've said,
I think seeing it again has actually made me think they needed to do this. They needed to take it into this direction
because otherwise we would have stories we already knew. We would have people online, telling us what's going to happen in the film because they've read it in a book like 20 years earlier, all that kind of stuff. You just and besides, these books were written by
Timothy
sci-fi.
Zahn and-
Timothy Zahn and people like Kevin J. Anderson, who wrote. I mean, Kevin J. Anderson writes books in the Aliens series and whatever, and things like that. And he also did these Young Jedi Academy books that I had when I was a kid. They were like young adult fiction, but for Star Wars fans, and they were about growing up, learning how to be a Jedi under Luke Skywalker's training and avoiding the dark side and stuff like that. So. All of that stuff's very interesting, but we can sort of imagine that sort of stuff has happened. And to be fair, all the Disney canon is happening off the back of a lot of ideas that were put forward in those original books. So
of course.
It hasn't been completely destroyed.
Well,
it has been looked at.
You could look at I don't know, Rebels.
Yeah.
Timothy Zahn characters are coming through there quite easily.
Yeah, Thrawn. Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And thinking around that as well. And you could say, well, okay, what they've done is they're trying to stay true to some of the Ralph McQuarrie artwork, and the original sketches to Chewbacca.
They did.
Is now in Rebels as well. So there's a lot of like Star Wars fans are the worst, because it's like there's so much moaning out there. Like even people like Dash Star that do all this sort of fan theory stuff on YouTube for a laugh. He's stopped doing it now. He's just like, he's got so upset with the film, he stopped doing it. So look, I loved it a second time. I think it's a brilliant film. I think it's a wonderful experience. My dad really liked it. I loved Yoda. Yoda was my favourite part in that whole film. It was beautifully done.
The line he says, by the way, he sets fire to the tree.
Point.
Yeah. So Jude noticed, which I didn't notice, that at 2 times you see that the books in that library, Rey steals them. When you see Rey about to get in the escape pod, the first thing you see is her shutting a drawer. Inside there, you can see the books. At the end of the movie, you can also see the books when Finn is looking for a blanket for Rose in the drawer. And what Yoda says to Luke is that Yoda burns a tree down, and he says, and Luke says something like, "They were the sacred Jedi texts," and he says, "Page turners, they were not," and whatever. Yeah. And he goes, "That library contains nothing that the girl Rey does not already possess." Brilliant. Meaning,
she's got the books.
She has taken all of the contents of that library with her. So, and then he says something like, all students live past their masters or go on from their masters, extend beyond their masters. This is the true sign of a master, or something like that. Yeah. And it was sweet. That whole Yoda scene is wonderful, and they did it so well. Even Frank Oz somehow managed to find the right
characteristics.
Voice. Yeah, because he didn't have that when he was a CGI or the previous puppet.
Yeah,
he didn't see the whole kind of like the chuckles and
the leg movements. He like bangs his leg up and down, and Yoda's suddenly got his madman sense of humour back.
And the way when Yoda walks, he kind of looks down and he looks forward and steps forward and he looks down again, see where he's going, and he's like treads carefully like that.
Yeah.
That's how Yoda walks in the original films. He does it again now, and the way he pokes Luke he hits Luke with the stick as well, doesn't he? And says something
that's a sort of Force ghost becoming physical. And what I noticed in this film with Yoda, I mean, we talked about the tree being burned down by Yoda.
Yoda's not transparent anymore. He's got a light blue glow around him, but he's physical. You can't see through him.
Now, there's 2 more things I just want to touch on, and Yoda's one of them. You just mentioned it there before we move on. Force ghosts. Yoda blows the tree up, which means he's not just a ghost floating around just saying stuff. He's actually making physical objects react to his decisions. All right?
Yeah.
So he can make lightning hit a tree, right? In the end of Return of the Jedi, the novelisation, or the original script for Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but Yoda and Obi-Wan were supposed to come back and fight the Emperor.
That's correct, but it was going to be as ghosts, so they would be
physical
intervening, and there was going to be the Emperor and Luke in the middle, and they would sort of be having a 3-way fight. Yeah, that was the original idea.
So
that was all to take place in a cave.
I thought, was it not Vader's castle?
No, it was the Emperor's castle, which is like a cave surrounded by lava and that kind of thing.
So I wonder whether that was sort of even a nod towards that, or something we'll see in the future with Luke, perhaps.
Yeah. Oh, Luke will be back in 9. If Mark Hamill's not back in 9, I will... I'm trying to think of what I would do that I'm willing to actually commit to. I will...
You heard it here first.
I will walk into the Disney store in London.
You're not going to urinate over kids again, are you?
No, I'm going to pull my pants down.
So wait, I knew that was the next line.
Completely naked.
I knew the words "pull my pants down" were coming out.
Seconds at least, and then if the police arrest me, I'll say I'm doing it in the name of Star Wars because I'm absolutely sure that Mark Hamill will return.
That's not going to go down well in court unless the judge is an epic Star Wars fan and listen to Star Wars. You got no chance, mate.
All right,
you got no chance.
I'll tell you what. How about we kiss?
No, outright no, straight off. I'll be begging Mark Hamill to be in the bloody film.
Mark Hamill, yeah, he'll be back in the next film.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you. When Luke comes back as a younger version of himself in this sort of forced projection,
yeah. Why is he a younger version of himself? I had to force project myself, but I used no grey for men on my beard.
That's what I was thinking. It's a bad bit of makeup, isn't it? It's a bad bit of makeup.
Why has he used that?
Well, I was thinking about it because I think it's a romantic projection of himself. Or how people remember him before he did a runner.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So
maybe other people see him as an old man and some people see him as the young Luke and stuff.
I imagine the clothes that he was wearing were the same clothes that he was wearing when Kylo was training with him.
Well, he wasn't, no, because he was wearing white in the scene. In that scene, but in the two hut scenes. They call them the hut scenes not because of Jabba the Hutt, but because Ben is sleeping. And it's basically like a little tent thing, isn't it?
It's a bit weird, that whole thing. I mean, like, why don't you just wait up, say, Ben, fancy a bacon butty, mate? Fancy a chat? And then have it out like a normal person in the morning with a butty and a coffee. Not go to someone's little hut at night, stand over them like a pervert.
With your hand out, reading their dreams.
Getting your lightsaber out.
Yeah.
Even if it was for a second, the whole thing was a bit weird. And I think that's what has annoyed a lot of people.
I remember you gasping in the film. You gasped in the film when that happened. When it showed it from Ben's perspective, he turns around and Luke Skywalker's going, this anger in his face, and like his eyes are like almost orange because his blade is being reflected in his eyes. You were like, fuck you. It was you and the whole cinema. We were at the IMAX and everybody just gasped because it was like, my God, like look how furious Luke is.
I was like, that's not Jedi. That's not Jedi.
But that's not the truth, though. Neither perspective is the truth because one of them is a certain point of view, right?
Precisely.
One of them is Luke's opinion, and one of them is Kylo Ren's opinion. And Kylo Ren's opinion is obviously going to be exaggerated, and so's Luke's. So the only person who actually sees the truth here is Rey. She says the scene when they touch hands is so powerful as well. When you go and see it in the film again, and there's a boom, isn't there? When their fingers touch, there's like a thunder boom that goes in the distance, as if
that's some powerful force.
Yeah, like matter all around the universe has just fallen, or something.
We saw that before with Luke and Vader in Empire when they're sort of, it's almost like being telepathic. When Luke's leaving Cloud City and he's like, son.
It keeps doing the fading though, but then they did that between Leia and Kylo.
That was nice. That was nice.
Yeah, gentle crossfade, quite fast.
Luke's blue lightsaber. Thoughts on that? Do you think that's Kylo's lightsaber?
It's definitely not the lightsaber that Luke uses at Bespin. It's not the Empire Strikes Back lightsaber. It's not Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. The one he is shown using in that final scene on Crate is not a lightsaber we've seen before. My only explanation is it's the lightsaber that that Ben Solo had.
We need to get our
which you
hands
see
on
in
a
the
visual
flashback.
dictionary, man. When's that visual
But
dictionary?
I've got the visual dictionary, and the lightsaber is not in there. All the spoiler stuff is not in there because of spoilers. They've
Ryan Johnson
obviously
needs to come out and explain that bit a little bit. I mean,
Well, I just want to know why did he give him a blue lightsaber? Why couldn't it be green? Does it really matter? No, it doesn't matter. But the thing I did notice second time around is that Luke doesn't leave any footprints on the salt.
No,
when he's fighting Kylo Ren.
Little clue.
Yeah, little clue. He's not really there, and there's a big deal about Kylo Ren leaving footprints. You get all these close-ups of Kylo Ren's feet. And then you casually notice that Luke isn't actually leaving them. And at the cinema, I did notice that, and I thought they haven't CGI'd that correctly. They've missed that. But it was actually they were actually going somewhere with it. It was actually a projection.
But when you first saw that it was Luke, like on a rock on Act 2 still, and he was meditating.
Yeah. The whole cinema applauded, didn't it?
No, you started the applause. You were just sitting there going, clapping, and then everyone there was a ripple around you. You loved it. I always took the blue lightsaber as sort of a romantic thing about Luke, and it's his father's lightsaber.
Yeah,
and he was,
and his lines as well they go back to the prequels. There's a lot of prequel comparisons in this movie. He says, "I'm sorry, I failed you. I'm sorry," and that's exactly what Obi-Wan says to Anakin. Yeah,
there were two things I didn't really like. It was the wink and the dust off the shoulder was a bit like.
At the time, I liked it. The wink to C-3PO is okay, but the dusting off the shoulders are a little bit kind of like, I don't think Luke Skywalker would do that.
No. There's a bit more Han Solo, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. The bit when he's says to Rey, reach out, and then she's like going, she puts her hand out and he starts tickling it with a little bit of leaf. And she's going like, I can feel that. You feel like this, and he's like whips her hand and says like, that's not what Luke Skywalker would do. I think Luke Skywalker's a bit more serious than that. That's definitely the kind of the Rian Johnson comedy coming in there a little bit.
I know. It took you away from the seriousness of that moment.
It does definitely take the seriousness away. You wouldn't imagine Yoda doing that. Do you know what I mean? It just felt a little bit like in the wrong film.
Because you see Yoda doing it to Luke, going through his lunchbox and stuff. And
but Yoda's acting like an arsehole because he wants to test what kind of character Luke Skywalker is.
Yeah.
And he gets from it the guy's impatient. He doesn't tolerate others. He's kind of what's the word? I've said enough. He's impatient. He's too old to complete the training. That's a great scene though when he's like, and he finds a little torch and he's shining it in his face, and that's one of my earliest Star Wars memories as well. I love that. I just thought it's so well done. And then he's going, mine, for I will help you not. And then the little arm comes out and tries to take it off him when he's beating R2. That's the kind of comedy I wanted to see. I didn't want to see Luke Skywalker tickling Rey's fingers.
You still got that. You got a glimpse of that with Yoda. And it was...
Yeah.
I say this every time I see it. It was like I'm watching a deleted scene from Empire.
Yeah.
That's how good that was.
When you saw the second time around the film, did you notice the conflict between Hux and Kylo Ren?
Yeah, you mentioned the gun being drawn.
He's about to shoot him while he's laying on the floor, and then he puts it away again. And then through the film, there's all these glances at Kylo Ren. I think they're setting up a kind of retaliation. I think at some point in 9, Kylo Ren's going to be exiled or betrayed.
Well, let's just talk about that for a second. So where have we been left? Now the dust has settled. We've seen the film a few times.
Well, by killing Snoke and then refusing to join with Rey or help the Resistance, Kylo Ren has done the thing that he wanted to do, which was to become as powerful as Darth Vader. I mean, Darth Vader answered to a master. Kylo Ren doesn't have to answer to anybody now. Kylo Ren is in complete control of the First Order. And the only person who stands between him and control is Hux, who he very quickly shows that he is no match for, and he basically strangles the guy.
I mean, Hux is scared of him. So
Hux is scared of him, but he also is quite sarcastic and cocky. And Hux is the rightful heir to that throne, in my opinion.
But, okay, why? He's so young. He's so young.
I know, but his seniority is obviously he's equal to.
Was great, by the way.
Oh yeah, he was good, wasn't he?
In the film, fantastic.
It's Chief Inspector Grubbler. I was expecting him to sort of just talk like.
Start looking at
the
me.
funny thing is, there's an episode of Bottom with a character called Chief Inspector Grobbelaar, and he is the guy who comes up to Tarkin in Rogue One and goes, I want to see Director Krennic, and he goes, he's on the planet, sir, on Scarif. That's Chief Inspector Grobbelaar from Bottom.
Oh,
so
really?
It's cool that he is in it,
That's
and
great.
Eddie from Bottom is in it, and a couple of other characters from Bottom have appeared in Star Wars over the years as well.
There's like a continuation
There's like a little link.
of the trend.
But to see Eddie in it, you know what would have been great though? If Rick Mayall was still alive, to have Rick Mayall as another Imperial officer.
I imagine him as like a crazy bomber going towards the.
I can
dreadnought.
see him as more of a kind of cocky guy, Imperial officer, but really kind of smug and very, very patriotic and arse-licky and slimy. And that's the kind of. It's just such a shame that Rick Mayall wasn't around. I reckon
Passed
the
away,
two of them. The two of them as Imperial officers bickering and trying to
out-bicker each other.
Out-bicker each other. But I love
Hux
those
is a funny
opening
one.
sequences.
For 9, though, mate, for 9, he can't win in the Force. There's no way, he can't have a 1-to-1. Ren's going to kill him all day long. He needs
I
to
think they're going to do
from...
They're going to do something massive. He's going to try and betray Kylo Ren and get rid of Kylo Ren. Maybe even exile him to leave him on a planet, kind of thing. He's going to do something which puts Kylo Ren out of the picture. And
he's going to have to force communicate to Rey to rescue him.
Yeah, well, maybe. But I think Kylo Ren's will then realise that could be the catalyst in Kylo Ren's next step. Because the way that he's glaring at Kylo Ren through the final act of the film, it suggests that. I mean, the reason why the rebels got away is because Kylo Ren let his personal emotions get in the way. Something which Hux says to him: "Do not let your personal feelings get in the way of this." Yeah. He ignores him. It's then a failure. He has to answer to it, and I think Kylo Ren will be overthrown or something like that in the ninth film.
If Kylo Ren is walking around one of those Star Destroyers, and the entire First Order has turned their back on him, he can fight to a point, but he hasn't got a chance. So he has not got a chance. All those stormtroopers and all of that, really. So I think they'll put it as his mutiny. The other point I want to quickly make is if Chrome Dome comes back, I'm going to have the right hump. Because she was the most pointless character of all time in Star Wars. Phasma I'm talking about.
Yeah, obviously. Phasma was underused yet again in The Last Jedi. Like I said, I forgot she was even in the film until she turned up. I just completely forgot she existed in the Star Wars universe.
FM 2187.
So good to have you back.
Do you know what I mean? What is the point?
The fight sequence is very brief. She falls into fire. I mean, I reckon she'll be back. I reckon she will be back.
It's just like...
But I do not
thing
think
that's starting
Snoke
to annoy
will be
me
back.
about it, right? I didn't mind it in The Force Awakens. It's like it's becoming. It's so there's no shame with the marketing of her. Do you know what I mean? She's clearly a gimmick to sell toys. That's literally all it is. Toys and comics.
I don't really understand that, but maybe.
Oh, she's
we definitely
Disney
got the wrong
mugging
impression.
People off. Oh yeah, but why does she need? I know if you've read the Phasma book, it explains it. But for those that aren't that deeply into the lore and read everything, people are just going to question, why does she need a new uniform? What's so special about her? Because she doesn't seem like she's lethal enough to warrant that level of...
Because she's a disco stormtrooper,
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
why she's like dressed like a mirror ball.
She's got like these massive platform boots with dead goldfish swimming around in the hills. So I've got one more question for you before we move on. Mm-hmm. If we're saying that Rey is the equal in terms of power to Kylo Ren, she's the yang to his yin, not like that.
Yeah.
How on earth how does one defeat the other if they essentially cancel each other out?
I don't know, but I mean, she overpowered him on the Starkiller base, didn't she? So she does have, and that's something that Supreme Leader Snoke mocks him about.
He was injured. He was
by her.
No, by Chewie.
Yeah, maybe. He doesn't seem that. I mean, he overpowers her for a lot of that fight, and then she draws energy from the Force, and she comes back at him and completely
I don't think he was
overthrows him.
Expecting it. So I don't think he was expecting it. I think he was also injured by Chewie. I think what was a little bit silly was that Finn managed to get attack him and hurt him in some way in The Force Awakens with the lightsaber.
Yeah.
That should have lasted 2 seconds, that fight.
It did last very brief, but I mean, there was a bit of... You saw Finn using the lightsaber earlier in the film as well in The Force Awakens, and he does a pretty good job with it. But I mean, he's very quick. He's very quickly disarmed, and he realizes that it isn't. He doesn't know what he's doing. Really, he's inexperienced. Whereas Rey gets the lightsaber, and look at how she behaves with the lightsaber in on Act 2 when she's playing with that rock. Look at how she uses the lightsaber, because she starts off using her stick, and then she thinks, "I'll use the lightsaber." She also has a very good command of it when she is fighting against Snoke's guards, and there's one bit where she's got her arms locked. My favourite part. She's got her arms like locked, and then she lets go of the lightsaber, catches it, reignites it, takes out his legs, takes out his head.
That was beautiful.
And it's so well choreographed. And I'd rather, that compared to the dancing around that we see in the prequels, that's way more entertaining to watch, in my opinion. That kind of shorter, more violent fight, more kind of like. It's not just about smashing things and making beams of light touch each other. When people sword fight in films, they have to look like they're trying to kill each other. And in that sequence, the guards genuinely look like they are trying to murder Rey and Ben.
Yeah.
And I call him Ben because I consider him Ben at that point.
Yeah.
You can see there is definitely a sense of danger in the cinema. It felt like any minute one of them was going to lose a limb.
Yeah.
And it's a very intense fight, and it's so well choreographed. It isn't all about all this stupid, like spinning around and like doing somersaults and crap like that. It's genuinely about trying to kill your opponent, and it was like watching Kurosawa films, watching like an old samurai film, watching their fight sequence there. If that is what Rian Johnson can give us, I mean, maybe this is why I like the lightsaber sequence in The Force Awakens so much, because it feels so brutal and powerful, and it does look like they're trying to kill each other.
It feels like a Return of the Jedi style.
Yeah,
lightsaber
when
sequence.
Luke comes after Vader, you mean?
There's like desperation. There's desperation in every sort of swing of the saber, right?
Because let's face it, the Darth Vader Obi-Wan sequence from A New Hope is very, very tame by comparison. And the prequel stuff is just too over the top, and it's just too wacky. Even by the third film, they still hadn't learnt the lesson. They still hadn't.
But I think George Lucas was sort of trying to ram the point home a little bit too much, that these are trained Jedi. This is the sort of style of fighting that you would get from a Jedi Order in its prime. Not sloppy, but like finessed sword fighting, so it does look a little bit pantomime. But the bit going back to The Last Jedi with that fight sequence with the guards, what I loved was when Kylo was stuck in a sort of headlock with one of the guards' swords, and Rey throws her lightsaber to him.
Yeah.
And for one split second, over the shoulder, he ignites it, and it's a blue blade. And for one split second, he's bent to me there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's using a lightsaber. He's clearly not a Sith Lord.
He's not.
He rejects it. He rejects it in the film.
Yeah.
But he's a dark side user, and I think that helps to really cement the theme of this film.
But isn't Rey a dark side user too? By going into the cave, by looking, asking who her parents are, all that kind of stuff.
But this is the point. It's just light and dark where you can dip into each pool.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Skywalker says to Rey, he says, to think that if the Jedi die, the light dies is vanity. Can't you see that? I think that's more or less verbatim what he says. And it's a whole new way of thinking of the Force, because the Force isn't about... Yeah, it's not a... Because like, she says, what do you see? And she says, like, peace and violence.
And a balance.
Life and death and decay.
Yeah.
And everything in between and whatever. Don't eat anything.
Sorry, I've got such a sore throat.
Okay.
Need something.
Death and decay. And it's all about balance, basically. And these new films are now casting aside all that bullshit about there being bad guys wearing black and good guys that wear cream and brown colours, and they dress in robes and they have haircuts in a certain way. All that prequel bullshit, which I never fucking cared for, is not relevant in these new films, really.
But I think it is, because what it's doing, it makes this film stronger by saying that, by acknowledging that it was dogma, and that the Jedi were too obsessed with their religion and the clothes they wore and all of that. But it acknowledges the prequels. Darth Sidious gets a mention. Yeah. So what this film does to me is it sort of glues everything together.
Well, the Canto Bite sequence certainly feels prequely, so...
That was pointless, get rid of it.
Did you find that any more tolerable second time around?
It was just boring.
Yeah.
It was pointless. DJ was completely superfluous.
I actually preferred DJ second time around than I did.
He's an interesting character.
I think we'll see him again. I think he'll be back in 9.
He's clearly used as a device to say, look, even between the rebels and the Empire, everyone's using these bad guys to get their weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, maybe he's it's almost like he's an acronym for the Force as well, or a metaphor for it.
In the tangible way, right?
Yeah, the rebels represent the light. He says something to Finn. It's quite prolific. He says something like, "You blow them up. They blow you up today. You blow them up tomorrow. It's just business or whatever." And he says something like, "Do you really think that?" And he goes, "Maybe," and just walks off. And it's kind of interesting, as if to say, this guy is in the middle. He basically says, "Don't choose a side" to Finn, doesn't he? He has a very brief meeting with him. I quite
like him. He feels like a little bit of a Lando of the film, and I think we'll see
more like a Han Solo to me. I think.
Well, I think we'll see him back in 9.
Yeah, me too.
Most definitely.
Yeah,
and helping the rebels. I think. Why not? I think. Can I ask you one last question? Sorry.
Yeah, go on then.
Rey's a Jedi. Luke says it at the end.
He says, "I will not be the last Jedi."
Yeah, and he's referring to Rey. Yeah, but if there's no Jedi and Sith, then what is a Jedi now? If there is just balance, then what is a Jedi?
Yeah, maybe the term Jedi isn't really appropriate anymore because it refers to a religious... I mean, look, Rey's taken the books, yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe Luke realised that when he said that, "I will not be the last Jedi." And we see the children at the end, the kid lifts up his, broom like a lightsaber.
I think what this film's trying to do then is it's trying to say, let's kill the dogma and the rules around what it is to be a Jedi Knight and actually bring it back to being a Jedi is about hope, and it's about fighting the good crusade or whatever it is, fighting bad stuff. Or is that just too? Is that too?
I don't really know. That Book of the Jedi thing that's out. I've not read that. The Jedi Handbook.
Yeah.
I would love to know if any of Luke Skywalker's conclusions are represented in there too. Whether it's that book is actually all about prequel stuff, or whether it's actually got a more fair-handed.
Yeah, I think this whole thing's going to be. The whole film's about certain point of views, mate. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, perspective. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting because when the Kenobi film comes out, it's going to be interesting how they take this new Force philosophy and use it in a film like that. Maybe that's how you become a ghost. I don't know. Anyway, we better.
I don't know what
on.
they're gonna. Yeah, we better move on. I'd like to actually read out some comments that we received over the Christmas period regarding The Last Jedi.
Do it.
Because we had do it. Someone says do it in this film, don't they?
Do they?
Right. Yeah, Rose does. She says do it. Yeah, DJ says to her, unless you give me something up front, a deposit, I can't do my code breaking. And she throws the medallion thing at him, and he grabs it, and she goes, do it, and turns around in her chair. Her chair rotates.
Oh, really?
So it's like a double nod to the Emperor, in my opinion, with a rotating chair, and the do it. And also, when he goes, almost there, when he's like, that's definitely a nod back to episode 4, New Hope. Almost there. Almost there. That's me in bed. Almost there. Right. Okay, let's get some Instagram feedback. So you guys, our listeners and followers on Instagram, had such a massive mixed response to this film. Some of you guys sent us really nice. I mean, basically, the response to our episodes was really good, so thank you very much for that. But so many of you hated the film, so many of you loved the film. I've got some comments here. I'm just going to roll a couple of these. Obviously, we can't read them all out, but I guess I'll start with... was there one you want to read out first?
I haven't even got them up, mate. Sorry. Let me just go to my inbox because you've. So I've got them here. I've got them.
Lordow75 on Instagram said, "My main problem was how easy Luke was overturned by Kylo, and how he destroyed everything without as much of a fight. And then when Rey turns on him with a lightsaber, he's on the ground in the rain. Plus, the flashback made you think, well, Kylo was right to turn. Now, I know what you're saying, but I think that the flashback you see is from Kylo's perspective, and it has been exaggerated from Kylo's perspective. It's like when you tell your side of a story.
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, you had a fight with somebody. You tell the police what happened. You go blah 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 blah, and then they tell the police blah blah blah. The two sides will be exaggerated to your own ends, right? So I'd say, that's that, But
the other thing is Luke didn't want to fight Rey, so she overpowers him because he doesn't want to fight her. And
he's walking away, and she hits him.
He's cut himself off from the Force. He doesn't want to fight her, and that scene's important actually because that is the first time you see Luke use the Force because he's been pushed to.
Yeah,
and that's why it's important. And she doesn't defeat him. He just does what anyone would do if some maniac, a Force user with a lightsaber, is in the. She doesn't do anything. He just falls backwards, stumbles across some rocks, which is what we saw Darth Vader do. It's fine.
Jedi Rob 72 on Instagram said, I agree about being conflicted. I grew up on the Legends books and loved a lot of the stories and the way they wrote Luke, Han and Leia. I really liked The Last Jedi, but I was disappointed with a lot of decisions. He goes on to say, the great thing about George Lucas was that he had an outline for all 6 movies and had everything planned out. It seems these movies are being made up on the spot, and there is no connective tissue to the previous movie. I do like Rian Johnson's direction, and I'm actually more excited for his new trilogy of movies than I am for Episode 9. I would argue that George Lucas didn't have a plan for the 6 movies.
He famously says, doesn't he? I just sort of
I wrote all the scripts out, but it's not really the case, because if you read the draft scripts of those movies, they could not possibly have been pre-written because they're so different to the films we got.
He had a straw man. He had like a wireframe and a structure of nine films, which, interestingly enough, actually, George Lucas loved this film. And do you want to know why?
Did he?
Do you want to know why?
Well, I do know. I do want to know why, but I don't know why. Sorry.
Well, this was supposed to be how his version of Episode 7 would be.
Right. Okay.
Probably not to this level, but essentially Luke's hid himself away somewhere, and but with him, he's got this crazy powerful girl called Kira,
right?
Not Rey,
right?
And but the essence of this film was how 7 was supposed to start, which is why he hated 7 so much, because he was like, well, what the hell's this?
What happened to their children, all this kind of
But he loves this film because this is kind of based on his.
He visits the sets whenever they're making a Star Wars film, Rogue One, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and he gives sort of feedback on things, what he sees. But his biggest complaint is, why are you guys building these sets? You don't need to build these sets.
Is that
you
what
can
he
do
says?
it all with CGI now. Like, why are you building all this stuff? It's like, you
do you not
fucking idiot! Have you not learned anything, George? You fucking moron!
You know why? Because he said, I read in an interview the other day, he's not used the internet since 2000. Right, so he's not listened to anyone at all because he doesn't go online.
He's got like Windows 98.
He's got nothing, mate. He's got nothing.
The guy's a fucking moron. He's just blind. How can you be about fucking hubristic? I mean, he thinks he invented like CGI technology. Of course, he definitely had a massive role to play in that. But a lot of that CGI technology was developed by people like Steve Jobs developing the Apple computer and stuff like that. But anyway, he was one of the pioneers of that, and he himself proved to everybody how badly it can be misused and over-relied on with those prequel films. Yeah. And many, many films in the 2000s, from like 00 to 2010, they look dated, they look old because we relied on them too much and we didn't really understand the technology and we thought that audiences would accept it. And in a lot of cases, they haven't. I mean, some CGI stands up, but it's always really interesting to hear what George Lucas thinks about these new movies because he's not involved with them. Yeah, and it's cool to know he likes this one. I guess I guess these are his characters again, aren't they? They're his characters being reopened and relived. Yeah.
Well, I think he likes this one because it's what he had planned for Luke. Yeah. Not to every single detail, I'm sure, but what he had planned for Luke. I mean, what they do with Leia in 9, flipping it, it's beyond me.
I reckon they'll start the opening crawl by mentioning she's died.
What a crap way to go. What a crap way to go.
I know,
we'll
but
see.
It'll be something like
they've probably
Princess
been writing
Leia
it,
has died.
They're probably writing it before they even wrote the script for this film. So Brummy Overlord says, great podcast. Can defo relate. Obviously, yeah. Can defo relate as we're having some love-hate conversations in the studio. I think it's a design studio. I know it's a design studio in London somewhere. He bangs on about it all the time on our feed. he says the conclusion is that they all love it, and they need to see it again. So I think they're sort of in the same sort of seeing it a second time. They love it sort of thing. And Dave Dunn, he's also said, let's scroll up. He says, just listen to this podcast for the first time. It's the first time I'm tuning in. Nice reactions. There were so many missed opportunities. I'm going again this weekend to formulate a better opinion. And he said he would be doing a live UK review on his Star Wars Black Series collectors Facebook group. Didn't really mean to give you a shout out there, Dave, but there you go. He's since come back, and he was annoyed in the first time of seeing it. I think a little bit like me. He since comes back further on down. He says that he's seen it a second time, and after careful consideration, he loves it, and it's a great film.
Cool.
So there seems to be a theme of this sort of seeing it a second time.
Definitely. Chris Graham, 1977, on Instagram says, I've seen it 5 times now. It's brilliant. Multi-stranded narrative, very skillfully delivered, beautiful character-driven story arcs, brings ideas of the Force and other fantastical ideology to a more palatable realism-based fantasy, if that makes sense. Yeah. Watch it a few times before making a judgment would be my advice. It's not flawless, but nothing ever is, apart from my Fender Stratocaster. And as an owner of a Fender Stratocaster, I can agree with him on that. It's a beautiful piece of machinery.
Yeah, I mean, and talking of beautiful machinery, Tom Bartley, he's popped up. He's saying, great show as always, guys. Cheers.
Thank you, Tom.
He says just finished his second viewing, but he also says he's hoping that Rey crafts herself some sort of Darth Maul-esque lightsaber.
Double-ended.
In the night, a double-ended lightsaber. I don't know whether we need that.
We've already had it, but I guess, she'd look good with that because she's used to fighting with this stick, isn't she? This great big bloody stick.
Well, it did make for interesting viewing with the guards because they all had these different sort of shaped weapons. So it was a real sort of visual feast for the eyes. All these different sort of shaped weapons coming towards the characters that we're sort of obsessed with. Yeah. Cheers for that, Tom.
I've got one here from Free Stripes and Footy. That's Free Stripes and Footy on Instagram. Loved it. Answered some questions, brackets, although I still do not believe some of the answers, close brackets. Several hidden Easter eggs and nods to the original films while paving way for the future. But like all good films, especially the middle part of a trilogy, leaves us with questions for the next instalment that we want answers to. And we can spend the time between now and episode 9 speculating where those answers will come from. Yeah. For me, The Last Jedi is in the top 3 of the Star Wars franchise. I agree with him there. Where do you rank it, mate?
Well, I text you with the didn't I? The first time, did. And I had it.
It was under episode 2, I think.
No. Episode 2 was the bottom, and this sat just above episode 2.
Right.
But the second time I came out, and I was like, this is as good as Empire. I think this is how people will look back at this film. And you got to remember, people hated Empire Strikes Back when it came out.
Yeah,
they didn't have the same crazy reactions because we didn't have the internet back then. But it was a weird way to end the film. It had never been done before, where the bad guys win. People were like confused about Luke and Darth Vader and the sort of father-son thing, and people complained about it. It's fact. You can read about it on Wikipedia. It's on the history books, and I think similar things happen with this film. Now, whatever they do in 9 will what 9 will do is it will make us look back at 8 and see it as a oil painting of a film.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. So it's definitely up there. It's in my top 2 for sure.
When you say about Empire, I mean, with respect, Empire doesn't have Canto Bight. So it can't be the better film. It can't be.
I'm not putting Rogue One into this because it's not part of the
I think
trilogy.
it is. I think it is part of the Star Wars canon, but
Oh no!
I
Of
love
course,
Rogue
it's
One
part of the
so
canon,
much.
but it's not a Skywalker trilogy film, right?
Okay.
So if you put Rogue One in there,
Yeah.
man, that film's just good because it's like ticking all the fanboy boxes, big time. But that's what we wanted. We just wanted a complete like gold
They got it
rush.
so right. They got it so right. with Rogue
Vader,
One.
everything was so good.
I watched it again the other day, and I put it on for background noise while I was just sort of doing housework and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just sat down, and I was 2 hours later. I was still sat there. I was like, I haven't been able to leave. Can I read one out by Mary May Lifts? She's
Sorry, Cop.
she's a big fan of ours.
So read that again, mate.
Okay. I've got one here from Mary May Lifts. She's a big fan of ours, has been for a while, and she's I think she found us on Twitter and has moved over to Instagram. She says, 4 out of 5, overall storyline is amazing. Ben and Ray's story arc is wonderful, and I'm really holding out for a redemption arc. So sue me, brackets. Could have lost the whole casino scene, and Del Toro's character is unnecessary and contrived. I felt they forcefully introduced some new species in a way the originals did so effortlessly, so that felt a little jarring. Mark Hamill gave the performance of a lifetime, though. I agree with her on that. Also, agree with pretty much 100% of your review of the film. Nailed it. So thank you very much for the feedback, Mary.
Cheers, Mary Maylifts. She also goes on to give this little ditty. It's a completely different thread, saying, I mean, that was quite a deep analysis there. But she also says this: much more spunk second time round. So,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Cheers for
so
that.
much spunk.
Gooch, good old Gooch, 89. We love Gooch. We love you, man.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Happy New Year. He says he had me scared for a second there, guys, because I was like going off on one.
Jude was fucking furious.
He says he can't wait to see it again with his family after Christmas. I hope he's done that by now. Will be interesting to see what issues may have had with it, if any, and how I might feel about them after second time viewing. Currently listening to the soundtrack at work. We've all done that. We've all got the Last Jedi soundtrack on. Just blasted it.
What's your favourite? I mean, there's the one that goes. I tell you, the Rose and Finn music. It goes dee 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 dee, and I swear to God, that is from Jaws.
When you've got
That's
that
from
voice.
Jaws. That's when they're going to Little Island in Jaws.
I would love that. For Disney to listen into this podcast and go, we've run out of budget. We've spent all the money on CGI for Carrie Fisher's face. We can't afford any orchestra this time. Let's get John Galantini in to just sing into a microphone and just make it up.
I really like the new sort of theme that represents Poe. It goes dun 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 dun. Yeah, the kind of like during the opening sequence, because that opening sequence is so exciting, where they go, "We've caught them in the middle of their evacuation,"
it's good.
And then it goes to that. Scramble the TIE fighters, and he goes, he should have done that 5 bloody minutes ago, and like those cannons, that fighter is too small and too puny, he's trying to empty our surface cannons.
He was a good bad guy.
Fire on the base! He's so
old.
good.
Like, he was old, which is a beautiful juxtaposition to
these old cantankerous former Imperial officers.
That's what
they're
want.
great.
That's what you want.
They're so good. The opening sequence is so exciting.
I was going to say you my favourite. It's the music, and it's because it just goes back. It just brings Luke's music back when he dies, or not dies. He just becomes one of the Force. I just love it, and I'll tell you why. Because it ties back. You start thinking about Luke looking out to the sun, the twin sunsets in A New Hope, and I think you can only do that with the music, which is the music is so important
in a Star Wars film. And I think of all of the films, Rogue One was the one where the soundtrack felt the least important. I mean, it really was. It didn't really have its own. It didn't really come into its own. It had its own little theme, but it didn't really work too well.
The soundtrack's a character.
Yeah, and in Rogue One, John Williams' absence was definitely missing.
What a genius bit of thinking by George Lucas to make this whole thing classical.
Yeah,
Do you know
Christ,
what I mean?
can you imagine if it was all kind of like synthesizer-y? and
Yeah,
weird?
like-
Although synths have been used in Star Wars soundtracks, most notably when like Luke finds Vader in the cave on Dagobah, there's like a weird, really harsh synthesizer sting that happens, and it sounds unlike anything else in the Star Wars soundtrack. Kind of. What were you going to read out, mate?
It's kind of a bit of a thread, actually, mate.
Go for it.
So it's from Joey Farwell 11, and there's a little bit of a conversation going on between him and a guy called Duval, and he's saying it's a kids film. Star Wars is meant for kids, and then Duval comes back and he's saying nonsense, full stop, and then Joey comes back and he's like, but they were intended audience for early teens. And then he comes back and he says, sorry, Joe, that's nonsense, ... A film that started over 40 years ago is for all ages, not just kids. I agree it must be hard to please everyone, but there is so much wrong with The Last Jedi. Joey comes back, he says, there's so much wrong with every Star Wars film, but if ye only focus on that, you'll never enjoy the film. And then you've piped up right at the end, and you've gone... Well spoken, Joey. Well spoken, Joey. So a mediator / referee in that fight. Glad you broke it up.
Well, there are faults with every Star Wars film. I mean, let's not we slam the prequels all the time. Sometimes you even defend them. And Return of the Jedi is renowned for its problems. And even these new ones, there are faults in all of them. There has to be faults, I think. In order, nobody is going to be pleased all the time. Like we said before in the show, people come to the cinema with a preconceived idea of what they're going to see in the movie, misled by trailers and misled by their own anticipation and excitement. And they don't always get what you want. But guess what? This movie is different. It's fresh. It's introducing a couple of new ideas, very similar to the way that Empire did.
Yeah,
taking the theme into a different direction, because stylistically, Star Wars and Empire are very different movies. They even look different. One of them looks. Yeah. It's all lit blue, and there's all different uses of coloured lighting in Empire. None of that is in A New Hope. It all feels very 1970s.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and I think. To sort of finish this comment thread off on The Last Jedi, SD cards and toys comes in.
Lovely man.
Lovely guy. If you're not following him on Instagram or listening to his podcast, it's called the Sleeping Giant Podcast. Go listen to it. It's great.
Yeah.
He says, so he hasn't watched it for a second time, but he did finally listen to our initial reaction podcast, which he says is probably the second best thing. So cheers for that, mate.
Because we literally went through the fucking film in detail, didn't we? More or less. Like Kevin Smith did on YouTube the other day. He's done like an hour and a half video. Kevin Smith explaining the movie.
We had no opinion. We were just like going through the detail, right? So he said he thought he knew where he stood, but the film is playing ping pong with his heart and mind. With the exception of a few scenes that I thought were either out of place or just didn't work. He says he finally thought that he decided to quite like The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
He says, I think it took Star Wars to a place that, well, maybe we didn't necessarily want it to go as fans. It probably needed to go as a franchise.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point. And I think you made that similar point a minute ago. And I think sometimes when storytelling is only interesting if you get the unexpected. Storytelling only keeps you going back for more if it trips you up once in a while. If it just spoon-fed you what you wanted all the time, like I said this before, it's like ice cream. You have too much of it, you don't want it anymore.
Yeah. There's a danger that we will become oversaturated, though. I mean, with Disney releasing Star Wars films every year now,
of course,
for the foreseeable future, there is a very good danger that we may not.
The Star Wars galaxy is massive, mate, and
is there room in the Star Wars galaxy now for a box office bomb, for a flop, for a failure? Is there room for it now?
Well, I think.
Or do you think it will change everything? Let's just say, for example, because we're going to be talking about this anyway, we have to talk about this.
I think
Han Solo.
Yeah, well, the rumours are that Disney are thinking that this is going to be their first Star Wars flop. They're not expecting it to do well at the box office at all. Of course, it's not going to be up there with the likes of Force Awakens and Last Jedi. Of course, it's not.
Sure.
You know, people are asking, why have we even got this film? Do we need this film? And I actually think, with the aftermath of Episode 8, I think we do. And I'll tell you why. Because there's nothing riding on this film. People are going to go in there with no expectations. They're going to just sit there and they're just going to be entertained, right? And if we can lose ourselves in the story of whatever this film is and suddenly find ourselves in the world of Star Wars, then I'm well up for that. And I think that the Bob Iger and the people that own this franchise now, they just have to let go a little bit. If you know, you have to let go of the care of getting everything precisely right. Otherwise, you will fail. You will fail.
Yeah. I think so.
So it's kind of like, for me, it's these standalone films. I will go and see every single one, but they, for me, are just there for me to be entertained.
Yes,
you know
definitely. I mean? There'll never come a day where I refuse to go and watch a Star Wars film at the cinema.
Yeah.
It's Star Wars, for God's sake. It's the most important film series to me.
Of all time.
And, of all time. To me. But me personally, it's something I'll always go and see.
So talking of Solo, mate, there's been that image that's kind of been leaked.
Yeah.
Is it fake?
Wait. So let's just go back a bit. A poster comes out. It seems to be a poster showing concept artwork for the Han Solo movie, okay? So it looks very legitimate to me. It's immediately dismissed as being a fake by Disney. I don't think it's a fake at all. I think it's genuinely the real article, and here's why. So the way the poster shows Lando Calrissian, played by Danny Glover. It shows Han Solo, played by Aaron Reich, whatever his name is, and Chewbacca. And the Chewbacca we're seeing is the kind of new-looking Chewbacca from The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Chewbacca, now, this is really interesting. It's kind of an orangey picture. It's got clouds on it. It sort of looks like sunset Cloud City. And most interestingly enough, there is a very premature, early version of the Millennium Falcon on it with alternative paintwork and alternative blue and white. And it's also got
the dish is flat.
The dish is flat, embedded into the hull of it. And it's also got the points where the little kind of cutout at the front is. That's all filled
the hole. HOLE is whole. WHOLE.
It's actually It's a slightly different configuration of the front of it. Now, this looks so genuine to me, and I'll tell you for why. First of all, if you were a fan making a fan-made Star Wars Han Solo movie poster, you would probably make the mistake of doing it in the style of the original trilogy films and the prequels. You do space, you do it all assortment of heads, all at different sizes, going off a lens flare, that kind of thing, and you put the logo on there. Yeah. None of that is here. It looks so different and bold to anything
Costumes
we've seen before.
Hairstyles are different.
Han Solo is wearing a kind of a jacket that looks like it's made of suede, and it has the little kind of electronic gizmos on the breast of it, and it looks like a communicator. That the kind of thing that you see the rebels wearing on Hoth. Lando Calrissian is not wearing a blue silk shirt and flowing cape. He's wearing a high-collared coat, a bit like what DJ's wearing. He's got a black top on that's got yellow on it as well. It looks like a Star Trek uniform from Next Generation. Chewbacca's got his bandolier on, and he's wearing it on the right side, but his bandolier is really primitive. It's got
full of grenades or something.
It's full of these circular these cylinders, and some of them are empty. And it just looks like it's been really carefully retro designed. I don't think this is a fake at all.
I think it's been
this
deliberately leaked by Disney to gauge fan reaction.
That's a very interesting concept.
I
And
think
again,
they've done
look
that.
at the Falcon. Look at the way they've done the Falcon. It just looks like something the fans would not do. I don't think the fans are intelligent enough to come up with something this original. No offense to people. I mean, there's a lot of our listeners out there who love to make their own posters and stuff like this. But let's face it. I mean, look at the way. Look at Lando Calrissian's haircut, for Christ's sake. The guy's got like a kind of side parting in his
I mean,
like
yeah,
afro. It's
in,
all so unique and different and original and fresh.
Mate, I work in creative, and I know that these things that you can do this, but it's a lot of effort and it's a lot of money for stock photography to put that much effort into this sort of production for a gimmick. So I'm with you. I think it's legit. I think it's real. I think the Millennium Falcon, man. I think it's pre-special modifications done by Han Solo to give it that. I think he takes that middle bit off and changes things and does all this other stuff so he can do the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs.
I don't know about that, but I hope we don't see that Kessel Run 12 parsecs.
Of course
bullshit.
we are, mate.
I really don't want to see that because I don't want to know.
Kessel.
I don't want like an explanation for everything, really.
We're going to see Boba Fett. Did you see that leak?
But listen, imagine if it's really shit. And then every time that he says the Kessel Run in 5 parsecs, we think of this shit film.
Yeah, it ruins A New Hope.
Imagine that.
Hell.
But I don't know anything about Boba Fett, and maybe you shouldn't be talking about it in case it's a spoiler.
Well, tough tits, it's out there, mate. Ron Howard put it out there.
Right.
It's a silhouette, mate. It's one of those ones. Is it Boba Fett? Is it not Boba Fett? The mystery is that. This is the joy for me, though, mate. I mean, I love the films, but I've got to admit, I get more of a kick out of speculation than I do anything else.
About speculating.
Yeah, like you see a little silhouette and you go, it's Boba Fett's mum. Sorry, he didn't have a mum because he's a clone.
Boba Fett's mum.
You go, Boba Fett, your mum, and he goes, didn't have one in your face. That was basically...
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, there's a character there.
But there must have been an egg. No, he was a clone. No. So, hang on. Boba Fett's mum is the same as Jango Fett's mum.
Is there a mum? Oh, were they all based off one man, Jango Fett?
Jango Fett, yeah. Anyway, sidetracked, Han Solo. It's going to be... I think it's just going to be a fun sort of crime-based film. I think it's going to be Ferris Bueller in space. No, it's not really, but I think it's going to be a bit like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. You think?
Maybe.
Yeah, I know what you mean. What sort of Ron Howard?
Cocky, good for nothing, scruffy kid in space.
Scruffy looking nurse.
Decides he can be. I mean, look, Han Solo, when we meet him in episode 1, in A New Hope, is not a good person, okay? He's a criminal.
Yeah.
He's a smuggler, and he doesn't have anything good about him. He becomes good over the course of that movie, okay? So it can't end with... This film can't be about his heroic decision to do something great.
No, he needs to be
something...
a cheeky... Not even a cheeky chappy. He needs to be... he needs to be doing bad stuff, but with a smirk. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I reckon it'll be... The film will really be about him and Chewbacca and their friendship. Where did it start?
Mate,
that kind of thing.
I'm just looking at some of the Ron Howard films that have been out there, and there's some good ones out there. You got
Cocoon, my favourite.
Cocoon. You've got A Beautiful Mind. You've got The Grinch. I didn't know he did that.
He did.
Apollo 13. You got Frost versus Nixon. Love that film. Willow. Did bloody Willow.
Willow is a George Lucas production as well, isn't it?
There you go.
So made by Lucasfilm.
He's got to be
he knows what he's doing when it comes to special effects and whatever as well.
Yeah,
the guy,
especially
with Apollo 13. The special effects in Apollo 13 are really amazing. I don't even know how they got everybody to float around in that.
I mean, he's had a few doozies in this. I mean, like
Yeah.
Cowboys versus Aliens was pants.
Pretty shit.
But he's worked with Harrison Ford on that, so hopefully he can take some of those mannerisms and give him a slap up the arse.
That's true.
And American Graffiti he worked on as well. So there's like he's got.
Well, he was in it. He was in it, wasn't he? He was a character.
Of course he is. Yeah.
Because he was in Happy Days originally. This, Ron Howard.
Of course, blimey, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, but he's done loads of special films over the 80s and the 90s, particularly. That's what I sort of best remember him for.
Yeah.
He did a Beatles documentary recently as well, but that was kind of more like a kind of, like Martin Scorsese's documentaries about Rolling Stones and whatever. They're not really films. I mean, Willow's a favourite of mine. Cocoon is great. Splash
Da Vinci
is great.
Code.
The Da Vinci Code I'm not so fond of, but A Beautiful Mind's
You're talking
great.
about sort of like just classic retro films, right?
Well, just the sort of romantic sort of Saturday afternoon favourites from my childhood.
Love letter to the 80s.
Yeah. Willow, Splash, Cocoon. I loved him when I was younger. Cocoon was scary as fuck when that woman
it was weird.
peels her skin off and then she turns around and looks right through the eye hole where Steve Guttenberg is spying on her getting undressed, isn't he?
Right, okay.
And then she peels her skin off and then she turns around and looks straight in the eye hole.
Stop saying that.
What? In the eye hole? What's wrong with an eye hole?
Sounds weird. What the hell's an eye hole?
He's looking through a little tiny hole in a wall on a boat. He's watching her. She's in a cabin.
Because the way you were saying eye hole,
he's fixing the engine or something, and then he hears this noise, and he peeps through. It's a peephole.
That's what I was getting at. Right, now I've got you. Peephole. Makes sense.
She's a glowing
eye
alien.
Sounds
and then
perverted.
She kind of gets really close to the hole and looks right in, and it's really spooky. And it freaked me out when I was a kid. Didn't like Cocoon. I mean, I like Cocoon,
if you
but I was
like looking through
scared
eye
of them.
holes, give John Galantini a call.
It's like, lads, you're in the changing room, you hear your sister next door, you peek through, watch her take her skin off, you've all done it. So
All the rage in the 80s. So
it was all the rage. Can we talk about the Star Wars T-shirts?
Okay, so we have got a couple. So there's a couple of guys.
Well, you guys heard the Christmas special.
Yeah.
Jude hands me this bundle. Basically, we've gone and made quite a lot of exclusive and limited edition Star Wars shirts, with a really amazing design, which you're going to see soon. We'll put it up on social media.
I can do better.
And
I can definitely do better. This is a.
I think it's a beautiful thing, and it should be left the way it is.
No.
I don't think we should mod
In
them.
future productions, in terms of future sort of shirts, we're gonna go to town on this. But in terms of just like a celebratory Star Wars T-shirt, this is like a 2-color screen print. It's got everything from sort of faded
red and white.
Yeah, red and white. It's got everything from faded graduation on it to just big bold plastisol ink. It's going to like really stand out. So look, as John says, there's a limited number of these. We've got them in everything from small all the way through to extra large. And if you guys want one, which it sounds like you do, because the feedback we're getting from
people
Facebook
are excited.
and
They haven't
Instagram,
even heard it
it's
yet.
like
Haven't seen
I haven't
it
seen
yet,
it yet. It's going to be the biggest flop since the Han Solo
Snap 'em
film.
up quick, that's what I say.
So we've got.
But let us
Jenna-
know if you're interested,
Jennifer,
and we will post it soon, and we'll put up a price, and we will try and make sure that wherever you are in the world, you can get your hands on one. But there are only like say 25 or so. So
if you like, if demand's big, we'll get some more. But Jennifer Burnett from sorry that I've said that wrong, Jennifer Burdolt, from Facebook, because she says explicitly she hasn't got Instagram, but she found us through Spotify. So Spotify's working, John. She says happy holidays, and this is on Facebook. So she literally says, I'm dying to see that new T-shirt design. We've had Gooch come and get involved. He's like, I really, 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 really want a T-shirt.
Gooch's already got a T-shirt.
I know, but when he sees this, once he sees this, Gooch, once you see this, mate,
the old one's going in the bin.
Yeah, the old one's going in the bin. You burn it like an effigy.
Yeah.
So, like, people out there want it. It's going to be available. We're going to release it next week, and then we'll go from there. We build on our Patreon.
Yeah, exactly. Patreon. Yeah, we're going to get that launched at some point in this year, but right now we've just been crazy busy with Christmas and whatever. And I think we also need to get some of the commentaries wrapped up, don't we, soon?
We do,
well.
man. So we're going back on ourselves, Revenge of the Sith, and then Rogue One.
And then Rogue One, and then The Last Jedi.
And then the Ewoks, and then The Last Jedi, probably.
There's 2 Ewok films.
Oh, bloody hell.
I think we should get the Last Jedi commentary out there ASAP. Be one of the first.
How legal is it? How legal is it?
I don't think it's illegal to comment on a film which isn't yet available on Blu-ray or DVD, is it?
If audio is playing in the
background. We're already doing that.
If audio is playing in the background.
The audio will be so quiet in the background, will it even matter? The audio is on our other ones.
Fine, good point.
Just faintly. It needs to
be
let's get so quiet.
Let's get it out. Let's get Revenge of the Sith out there, which is the best of the prequels.
Yeah, I agree. No, I don't.
And then we'll do Rogue One, then we'll do The Last Jedi. We'll just get it done. We're just getting done.
All right then, mate.
Any other
have you
business?
Got any? Not really. I just wanted to quickly know, have you got any wrapping paper left?
Wrapping paper?
Yeah, so we can wrap this up.
Oh, that's one of the worst puns of all time. No, we run out of wrapping paper, but we do need to wrap up.
Okay, well, I've been John Gantini.
I've been Jude Kay.
And may the Force be with you. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.